Next performer is Will Hornyak. He's theoretically from Portland, but he says he hails from Milwaukee, Oregon. I suspect he might have a real estate gig there because he says it's the birthplace of the Bing Cherry, and Kellogg and Johnson Creek meet the mighty Willamette. It sounds like I want to move there maybe. He's a proud mud brother, meaning somebody that I think uses nets on the beach. And he worked as a set netter on the Nushagak River in Bristol Bay. And here he goes.
How y'all doing? Was that good or what? You know, I mean, man. You know, Dave, when I saw the schedule, I said, oh, great, I get to follow Dave Densmore, you know. First I said, hey, I can say Dave Densmore open for me. Yeah. And then I said, I got to follow Dave Densmore. So anyway, it's really good to be here. I work as a storyteller a lot, so I travel around a lot around Oregon, Washington, Idaho. And so I've been in some of the finest gymnasiums and cafeterias in the world. And I'll tell you, this is a bit of an upgrade. This is a great spot, you know. What a beautiful place, you know. So thanks for coming out, everybody. One of the reasons I love to come to Fisher Poes is I am a lover of places. I really relate strongly to a place. And though, you know, I haven't been to Cordova, Alaska, or Naknek, or even Dutch Harbor, when I hear the poets read, I feel like those places become part of me. Their love for those places, description of those places. And I'd like to give you a little poem about my love for where I live, Oregon. And the name of love for place is called topophilia, right? And this I just call Lady Oregon, my Lady Topophilia. Lady Topophilia, how do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love your hot, rugged, rocky, curvaceous, crooked river canyon country. I swoon at the scent of your high desert Oahe sagebrush perfume, your John Day River country juniper, your hot Ochiko mountain summer pine sap. Is there anything sweeter than your springtime Willamette Valley lilac, planted in deep, dark, rich, alluvial, silty soils? But Lady Topophilia, I love even the odoriferous aromas you wear. At low tide beneath dark Columbia River wharves at Astoria, where mammoth-sized sea lions sprawl over themselves like drunken sailors, on slimy kelp-strewn blocks of riprap, barking and howling and singing off-key, while dark storm clouds gather and wind-whipped winter rains and deadly ocean swells keep fishermen and sailors from Warrenton and Astoria anchored safely in bar rooms, shooting pool, swapping lies over shots and beers. Lady Topophilia, when I roam far from my Milwaukee home, birthplace of the Bing Cherry, where Kellogg and Johnson Creek meet the silt-laden Willamette, I'm not truly home until I have made a pilgrimage to your shore, until I have breathed in again that heady concoction of rotten cottonwood leaf mulch, goose poop, mud, and muck. Not until the great blue heron has scolded me again, rock, 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 as I intrude once again on its solitude and send it winging ponderously upriver towards Willamette Falls, in whose waters enormous sturgeon still swim in that same place where Clackamas Chinook villagers fished and grew plump on eel, steelhead, and salmon for 4,000 years. But Lady Topophilia, who could forget the nights? Oh, the nights when your igneous-inspired black columnar basalt outcroppings gleamed beneath silver moonlight, and then far, far below your Deschutes River waters whispered to me, murmured, and then broke free, roared ecstatic through White Horse Rapids, Buckskin Mary, Wapanesha Rapids, then undulated through rolling Sherman and Morrow County hills, cloaked beneath your gown of white winter wheat. But Lady Topophilia, how I admire, how generously, how easily you heft, you lift, you convey tugboats, mammoth wheat and potato laden barges, fishing boats, sailboards on gleaming waters above, and how below your deep currents still remember, still trace, still caress that vast basalt maze of river chutes and channels, that mother lode of salmon runs, Celilo Falls, now still beneath silent waters, where your voice once sang in 100 full-throated choirs of cataract and waterfall, and mixed with the voices of Cayuse and Chinook and Nez Perce and Tenino and Umatilla and Yakima and more and more and more for millennia. Lady Topophilia, you are ancient, you are storied, and you are ever new. From your fertile Tillamook tidelands to your sunburned Steens and lush Blue Mountains to Alvord desert sands, from remote Imnaha and Basque and Rome to South Wind at Port Orford to pastoral Sweet Home, you are the dewlip spring maiden. You are the ripe summer fruit. You're the wise autumn crone and the wild screeching winter hag. And I am your love slave, your gigolo, your most ardent admirer. Queen of my heart, goddess and muse of my soul, my love for you never, ever tires. Thank you. Thank you. How many of you are lovers of places? Right? You want to just shout out a few that you love anywhere? Just go ahead, fill the room. Places. Nice. Kath Lambert, you got it. Right on. Kodiak. Martha's Vineyard, nice. Venice, some water there. Where? Cootsie, British Columbia, nice. Nobody said the Voodoo Lounge yet, okay. Yosemite, beautiful. Okay. Crater Lake. Boswell Bay, where's that? Cordova, nice. Texas. Oklahoma, good, yeah. Where? Tahoma. Yeah, that's nice to hear the old name, Tahoma. Yeah. It's good to keep the names alive, you know. So I wanted to do something a little different. I fished as a set netter on the Nushagak River. I was a mud brother. If you fish the Nushagak, you get a lot of mud on you. Gary Snyder, the great poet, once said, there's more information in a square yard of earth than in all the libraries of the world. And if that's true, I was covered in knowledge for most of the summer when I set netted on the Nushagak. But one thing you need to know is that we use pickup trucks a lot on the Nushagak River to fish. You use the trucks to winch nets in and out, and you put a lot of fish in the trucks, and then you ride quickly down to the cannery, which for us is about a 13-mile ride on the beach. And so a lot of times you have the danger of getting trucks stuck in mud or in sand. And do you think they get stuck on an ebbing tide or a flooding tide? A flooding tide, always, right? Another thing is, at our set net camp, we had a beautiful, we called it our sauna, but it was a bathhouse. It was about 8 foot by 8 foot, just plywood, and we had a wood stove in it, and we'd stoke that thing up about every 5 or 6 days, put a big pot of water on the stove, and that would be our bathhouse and our sauna, and we just feel completely new after that, and we just love that thing. And the other thing is, the person in this poem is Norm Sarheim. Norm Sarheim is from one of the great Astoria fishing families. When I knew Norm, this was in the 80s, he was 75 years old. He knew everything and outworked all of us half his age. And also, I tried Norm's patience many times, right? And this is just a dialogue between two set netters after a long season. It's called Two Set Netters After a Long, Long Season, Trying to Remember a Few Things After Way, Way, Way Too Many Beers.
Well, you know, I think it was after the sauna burned down. That's when you got Norm's truck stuck in the sand. You know, it was after the sauna burned down. I said, no, this was before. That was a nice truck. But that sand, it was just so soft there, you know? And the truck just kind of, you know, just got it. And then the tide, it just came in so strong that day, you know? And the wind was just blowing so hard. And Norm, he got kind of angry, remember? Oh, yeah. Yeah, Norm, he loved that truck, you know? You know, Norm's been coming here since the 1930s. That's right. Norm is a tough old bird. Here's the Norm. Yeah, here's the Norm. You know, we should have rebuilt the sauna. We could have done it. Just me and you, a couple of guys, about half a day. We could have framed her up. That sand was so soft. It just took the front end of Norm's truck and just kind of... What did Norm say when he saw the truck stuck in the sand? Oh, he was kind of pissed, you know. What did he say when he saw that tide coming for that new Chevy of his? Oh, he said, that wasn't a Chevy. That was a Jimmy. Don't you remember his big club cab? I mean, it was a nice truck, except for the seat. Remember that dog chewed up that seat? Oh, yeah, that guy from New York City brought that dog, remember? This is a Doberman, dumb as a post. Yeah, he was a good cook, though, you know? Yeah, Norm came out and he says, what kind of a Molly Hogan have you got us into now? A Molly what? A Molly Hogan. That was the worst, a Molly Hogan for Norm. He says, it's all gone Jiminy Cricket Christ to Helen Kerflooey now. To Helen what? Kerflooey. That was one of Norm's words, Kerflooey, when things are really screwed up, you know? You know, Norm didn't say a lot, but when he said something, he said something, you know? Yeah. We should have rebuilt the sauna, you know? We had the stove. We could have just put some PVC pipe over, some tarps, but you didn't want to do it. That's when all the fish were coming in, Will, don't you remember? We had reds and we had slivers, too. What's a sliver? Silver. Don't you remember? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Who was the guy that came with that truck? No, it was a tractor. Oh, yeah, that guy. He saved my butt. He was one of those Seventh-day Adventists. Remember them? He came with a tractor. He just hooked up the cable. He pulled Norm's truck right out of the tide there. We just got in that thing, and away we went. That was a good guy. Yeah, but he was a Seventh-day Adventist. You're lucky it wasn't on a Saturday. Because they don't work then. Oh, yeah. You sure that happened after the sauna burnt down? That's it.
Sorry about that. I wanted to finish with a little poem from when I first fished on Bristol Bay. And I heard, like a lot of guys here, you hear this kind of siren song from other people that, I was living in Seattle, other people that come and fish Bristol Bay. And part of the siren song is, you can earn $10,000 in 3 months by fishing for salmon in Bristol Bay. And I heard the siren call. And I wrote this little poem about it. It's called The Bristol Deranged. Alaska is the song sung by the most enchanting siren. It is the land that beckons like the mist-enshrouded island. It is America's last great place and world's largest open-aired insane asylum. And from its many wards of lunatic and nut, bush pilot, homesteader, gold miner, driver of ice truck, it's not easy to say, I'd wager that the fisher folk that are craziest are the ones of Bristol Bay. Now you might be thinking, Will, crazy folk abound in every port in town from Minsk to Mandalay, and I'd agree. And none could hold a candle to the fisher folk of Bristol Bay. I met those gentlefolk one summer when I arrived and spoke my vision bold. I'm here to fish for salmon, the king, the red, the silver, the pink, work like hell and earn my share of gold. Well said, the captain to me roared. Now get down there and scrape those maggots from these holds. And I jumped in and labored 3 days' time in the company of maggots wriggling in pools of herring slime, until the captain said, boys, we're shoving off, it's time. And we shoved off in a 32-foot boat with 10-foot swells and seas, but little of that I saw, my head parked in a bucket clasped tight between my knees. But as I lay in the bunk half dead, the kindly captain descended and he said, "'Tis many a tide on Bristol Bay I've plied, and many a mate I've seen in your condition. And there's only one cure, 'tis fresh air, I'm sure." And so he helped me up the steps, out the cabin door to the windswept deck, so concerned was he for my disposition. But then he pointed to a 14-foot skiff that we were towing, that was nearly swamped now, loaded with lumber and gear in all the rough going. And he pulled the boat to port side in that heaving tide, and he pointed down and said, "That's where you're going." And as I slithered over the rail, and from the boat I handed up tool and lumber and bailed, I protested loudly, but the captain appeared greatly unmoved. And from that pitching skiff and that swirling brine, without a life jacket or line, I inquired, "Captain, is our job site here fully OSHA approved?" Not long after that, on the Ugashik River flats, building a set net cabin, pouring concrete, cutting lumber, pounding nails, in the tundra, wind, rain, and hail. Now there I was living high on the hog, eating and sleeping and resting my head in a snug 8 by 12-foot shed, just me, 4 other guys, and a dog. I walked a half a mile each day to the lake out back, 5-gallon bucket for the drinking water, 12-gauge pump for the bear attack. The food fell just short of sublime. Peanut butter, pilot bread, and oatmeal gruel with notes of old sock, wet dog, and diesel fuel. Now, you've heard the old saw, there's bush pilots old and bush pilots bold, but none that are old and bold. But our pilot, Dan, he was the man trying hardest to break that mold. His plane, like his life, showed many a scrape, monuments both to baling wire and duct tape. And the gleam in his eye gave me a fright when he landed one day and said, "They need you at the Nushagak site." And just like that, we rose up off the tundra over Bristol Bay in wild flight. Now, your life is in the hands of many a man, beach boss, boat captain, bush pilot like Dan, when the fates blow you to Bristol Bay, which still lay beneath us when we ran out of fuel and landed by the skin of our teeth, smashed hard down onto the graveled runway. And Dan just laughed and looked through me with his 1,000-yard stare. And I made a mental note to me, watch out for the guys who don't care. It was there on the Nushagak at a place called Flounder Flat that I filled out the rest of the long season and started to work with the rhythm of the tides, rest and mend on the lows, and work like a devil on the highs. The fish hit the nets at the flood. So just after tide slacked, we'd winch the nets back, pick fish, and wash off the mud. Mosquito clouds buzzing round our heads, chucking fish into pickup trucks' beds. We'd clear our 3 sites at dawn or noon or midnight and then push pedal to the pickup truck floor. Because the fish had to be fresh at the cannery scale or it was no sail, a wild 13-mile ride down the shore. And then back we'd fly to beat the ebbing tide, to winch the nets back out while we still had water to make the corks ride. Because the greatest fear was to miss that one big tide. And it was a fear well justified. For an entire season, a year's livelihood could be lost or made good on one tide. 30,000 pounds of fish could come in on one set. And so it was always, boys, get out the nets, get out the nets. By late July, with the red season through and the big money too, the crew mostly went on their way. But the beach boss said, Will, the silvers are coming, why don't you stay? But I was tired, weary to the bone, tired of smelling like bug dope and fish and ready for home. So when I said, what the hell, count me in, I'll go one more spell, I knew something in me had changed. And the beach boss said, well, look who's got a pinch of Bristol Bay salt in his veins. But I said, boss, that I can't say. Just wheel me away with the rest of the Bristol deranged. Because who could have predicted that in the end I would join them willingly, the most sorely afflicted, and a part of me bides with them to this very day. The good, the hard-working, the tough-minded, the strong, the crazy fisher folk of Bristol Bay. Thank you. Thank you.